Are the American people fit to govern themselves, to rule themselves, to control them? I believe they are.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. There is the love of God. And if you have any doubt concerning the love of God, look at the cross.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
We establish no religion in this country, nor will we ever. We command no worship. We mandate no belief. But we poison our society when we remove its theological underpinnings. We court corruption when we leave it bereft of belief.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome into another edition of American Heritage Live here on 97.7 The Peach. And we want to thank you for joining us this morning. And as always, we want to thank our sponsors who make the show possible. Jason Ingram with USA Title of Alabama, Sonny Maynor with Hometown Lenders, Jim King, Brad Phillips, and Homewood Auto Body Specialist, and myself, I'm a sponsor too, with Keller Williams Realty in Hoover, and my co-host.
People that came out and voted. I know a lot of people didn't, but who came out to vote? Do you have any idea?
You know, I don't have the numbers yet. That's an excellent question. If you remind me, I'll get those. I think that's a pertinent question. I should have them, but I don't. I think I've moved on. I think on average, a national average typically is about 35% will turn out for the vote.
All right. The reason I'm asking that is because, you know, we're saying that people aren't involved. The Christians are not involved in the process right now. That may not be so. During this last one, it was a tremendous outpouring of vote against this administration, and we were led to believe, of course, that there was a very low, and it may be so, very low opinion of the Congress itself. But when you see the landslide that took place, it'd be very interesting to see exactly who did the voting and who did sit out.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're correct, Ron. I think the overall sense was that it was a no vote for this administration. It was basically a rejection of this present administration's policies, national direction, where he was taking, President Obama was taking us as a nation, and it was an overwhelming rejection of the policies and platform. You can't spin that. It was an overwhelming rejection. Americans have said finally after this midterm, they've said, we're tired of it. We're not going to have it. We're stopping it. That's what the vote was about.
Interesting, Jeff, because there have been articles that have been coming out now from Leon Podesta.
Right.
And from Gates, Bob Gates.
Oh, did you see the interview?
No, I didn't read
Robert Gates? I saw it. I saw a clip of it.
This is both very respected men, both of two different parties, both secretaries of defense, and they both came out.
Listen, you've got and sorry to cut you off. I know the time is running, and we've got a couple of stories you wanted to get to. But listen, the Robert Gates thing, what he said on that just briefly, the main point of that interview was Robert Gates, he served both Democratic and Republican presidents.
That's right.
Under Bill Clinton and under President Obama. And it's my understanding, and President Bush, rather, it's my understanding, basically what he said was when you have the micromanaging of the attacks going on in ISIS by this administration, it is not for policy, it is political. It's political posturing when you have the micromanaging, basically making the military take the gloves off. They're not going after ISIS as they should. That was the point.
Yeah, well, interesting. Let's pursue this just a little bit further, Jeff, if we can. Is that we know for a fact that the president had missed about 50% of the intelligence gathering information that was presented to him over the course of the year. Is that correct?
All right, ask that again.
That the president had missed about 50% of the national security meetings that were planned. He wasn't there. One. Two, that about a year before ISIS really took hold, he had information that they were forming and that this was a threat.
At least a year in advance by the Pentagon. That's right.
And did nothing.
No, it was basically he would get in my understanding, he was given the briefings, the reports, but he wouldn't read them.
He wasn't reading them.
Wasn't reading them, and the attendance was off too. So there's no doubt it's tragic. And folks, as you're listening to this, we're not ganging up on the president. That's not our heart. What we're just trying to do is acknowledge the truth. We pray for the leaders on the show, as 1 Timothy 2:2 admonishes us to. Those in authority, pray for your leaders. As Christians, we're admonished, first of all, to do that, to pray. It's all right in this republic to gripe and complain, but first, we're supposed to pray for our leaders. So this show is just about speaking as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I know we've got about another minute before we take our break. Can you summarize a couple of headlines just briefly?
Well, of course, the two biggest things I thought that have come out recently, Jeff, is this immigration situation and the president wanting to ramrod through his immigration policy, raising the question, who is it that writes or rewrites the laws? Is it the president or the Congress? Is that a constitutional question that's raised, and if so, what do you do about it? The other thing, of course, is this gentleman that came out. He was the architect of Obamacare, and he came out, Gruber, and said how many lies and deceptions were perpetrated by this administration, and the president knew full well and was in this.
Yeah, I think if I recall, what I got out of it was basically he was saying that unless the administration had deliberately deceived the American people, it could not have passed.
Yes.
That's stupefyingly breathtaking. I mean, that is blow your hair back. What?
Yep.
So what you're saying is there was deliberate intent to deceive and to lie to the American people? And then secondly, add insult to injury. Yes, producer's giving us the break signal. Adding insult to injury, that the American people are too stupid to make decisions on their own. We have to make them for them. Otherwise, it won't be done.
That's right.
Well, and we may get into just a hair of that on the other side. You and I enjoyed speaking to those perhaps a little bit too long, and otherwise we ran into the break.
No, I think it had a bit.
But it had to, as you said, Ron, it had to be talked about. Well, folks, you're listening to American Heritage Live. We're off to a roaring start. And I hope you're enjoying your Sunday morning. If you're going to and from church, you can also stream the show live at 977thepeach.com, 977thepeach.com, and visit us on our Facebook page as well, American Heritage Live. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back. Jim King is a concerned American and one of our sponsors and friends here on American Heritage Live. Jim is on the board of the Hedges and Highways Prison Ministry. They provide adults and teens leaving prison with assistance in these areas: counseling, support groups, assistance in finding housing and employment, food and clothing and education. Right now, they're raising funds for gift bags, which includes items not provided in prisons. These items include toothpaste, washcloth, shaving cream, soap, and shampoo. It is amazing how many are in prison without any connection to family or friends. These gift bags will lift their spirits and allow them to feel support from a ministry that will help them once they get out. Hedges and Highways is a 501c3 organization, so all contributions are tax deductible. At the moment, their goal is to raise $20,000 for the gift bags, and they need your help. Please make checks payable to Hedges and Highways Prison Ministry, P.O. Box 112075, Birmingham, Alabama 35211. Or call Director Lois Gardner for more information. That number is 205-516-5634. 205-516-5634. Please call them today.
Savior, I come, I quiet my soul.
And welcome back into American Heritage Live. I'm so glad you joined us. Ron and I are having fun this morning, aren't we, Ron?
Yes, it's
Yes.
fun to get heated up once in a while,
Yeah,
but
it
it's a
is.
little dangerous at my age.
A little hot.
A little hot,
Under the collar. You ever
That's
heard
right.
that saying, hot under the collar?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've heard a lot of sayings.
Well, at this juncture, I'm very pleased. Daniel, do we have him ready? At this, we got the nod of the head from our producer. I appreciate you and all your hard work, Daniel. At this point, we want to bring in our favorite, one of our favorite guests, and that is Larry Powell from UAB. And Larry is a frequent guest on our show. He's professor of communication studies at UAB, a favorite professor there. We consider him one of our political analysts here. Larry, welcome back into the show.
My pleasure.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
Doing fine.
You take enough warm clothes to work? You know, it started getting colder this morning.
I didn't go into work today. I was not feeling well last night, and so this is recovery time.
A recovery time.
Yes.
Bless your heart. Well, I hope you get on the mend quick. Well, let's get right to the questions for you so we're maximizing your time. We had a big election first part of November. First of all, I want to get your reaction to what you thought from the election. Just your take on that. Let's start with that.
Well, overall, it was the most boring election I've ever been associated with.
Well, all right. Let me stop you there. Why was it boring?
Nothing unexpected happened. Everybody who was supposed to win won, and nothing happened that looked like it's going to change anything in Washington, except the fact that the Republicans got control of the Senate. But it doesn't look like they have enough control to do much, and so I don't know that there's going to be much change coming out of it.
Larry, now that they've increased the numbers, Republicans have increased the numbers in the Congress, do you see battles coming up with the more conservative element of the party there?
Oh, absolutely, which means, once again, very little is going to get accomplished. They got the numbers to pass legislation. They do not have the internal leadership to pass legislation.
So you feel like John Boehner in the House and Matt McConnell, Mitch, what did I say, Matt? Mitch McConnell in the Senate, you just feel that they're not progressive enough to move forward?
Progressive is not the correct term. Powerful.
Powerful.
They're not powerful enough to move forward.
Okay, yeah, you're
What
right.
does it take? That's a good point, Larry. Tell us what it takes to be powerful enough.
Well, you have to be a really good behind-the-scenes worker. You have to know how to twist arms, get support from people, and have to know how to compromise. And the current set of Republicans aren't good at that last word at all. And then, of course, you've got the Tea Party combating them, and it's hard to get the Tea Party to go along with some of the stuff that they want to accomplish. They can do this. I mean, I think Mitch McConnell has potential to eventually become very good at the job, but it's going to take him a while to accomplish that, and I don't think he's going to have enough time to accomplish that. I mean, the odds are the Senate goes back to the Democrats 2 years from now, and so you've only got 2 years to prove that you can do it in order to maintain control.
Yeah, Larry, on the flip side, playing the advocate, it could be argued that the House did send a lot of items to the Senate to be argued, and Harry Reid just sat on them, just bottlenecked it, trying to protect the president. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, this time they can get through the Senate, and so you'll be able to get both parties, both houses,
of course,
to agree on that. Problem is that in order to become law, they have to get through the president.
That's right.
And I think you're going to see there haven't been many vetoes by Obama yet, but I would guess that in the next 2 years you're going to see more vetoes than in the first 6 combined.
I agree. I think we haven't seen anything yet. And as far as the seat in Louisiana, Landrieu, how do you think that's going to go down in the runoff? It's projected that she'll lose that runoff.
Oh, she will lose that runoff. She finished first, but only by a percentage point. The person who finished second is a Republican. The person who finished third is a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the math. She's going to lose.
All right, so after we added the seat from Alaska, after the election results finally came in by pigeons or whatever, they were brought them in from the hinterland, that added a seat, I believe, raising the tally. So if Landrieu loses the seat in Louisiana, what does that raise the Republican tally to in the Senate? How many seats?
I have not calculated what the final number is going to be. It's going to be less than 60.
Yeah, and then I think it's about 55, right?
Yeah, I think 55, 56, I think.
Yeah, along in there.
Right.
Yeah,
but that's still short.
Yeah. But, well, okay, so what happens then, Larry, in my understanding, if they can get just five sympathetic Democrats to vote with them, which, based on the alienation that I witnessed, based on this last election between the Democrats and President Obama, that shouldn't be too difficult.
I think it will be difficult.
You do?
Yeah, I think they can get some. And they're going to have plenty of support, and they're going to have some Democratic support in terms of passing legislation.
Uh-huh.
But very few Democrats are going to be willing to go up against their own constituency 2 years later. They're not going to, there won't be many of them that would vote to override a veto.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I guess that remains to be seen. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, well, interesting, because during the elections, during the campaigning, of course, the media was saying how disturbed the Democrats were with the president, and they didn't even want him campaigning for them. So is it saying now that the elections are over, we're coming back to the house to roost there again, or?
Well, that's partly it, but part of it is they figured out that they would have been better off with Obama out there campaigning for them. He's their best campaigner, much better than any of the others. And if he'd been out there, they would have gotten more Hispanic and black voters out and made the races more competitive. But they know that they're going to be coming up with a possible presidential winner in 2016, and they don't want to make many people mad about that. I just don't expect a lot of compromise going on. The catch is, if it does occur, it is going to have to be a compromise. And the Republicans are in a tough position on compromising because the Tea Party won't let them do that.
True.
I'm just looking at the 2016 again, Larry, and all the talk seems to be about Hillary Clinton winning that nomination, that it's hers. But don't you feel some slippage here? And is she not moving a little bit more towards the center, like her husband? Where is that whole thing at? I mean, if she can turn out the vote, it would seem that the Democrats could get more seats back during that election. But where is she? I mean, do you see her winning this hands down?
Right now she does. She has no major competition except Elizabeth Warren, who's trying to run a populist-type campaign, but says she's not running for president. But she would beat Warren right now. Warren would be very popular with the liberal branch, the left-wing branch of the party, but I don't know that she has enough to get the nomination. Hillary, if she gets the nomination, would be a formidable candidate and would be hard for the Republicans to defeat because they're going to have trouble accomplishing anything over the next 2 years.
So you think Larry, you think that comment you made several weeks ago in regard to that it was not businesses or corporations that created jobs that seemed to blow up in her face, that comment, I believe you commented before, I believe it was you, that she might have said that to just kind of position herself to compete with Elizabeth Warren, to sound a little bit more progressive, a little more liberal. But that comment didn't test well when she said that.
Didn't test well, but it's going to be fine. It's not going to have an impact on her in the Democratic primaries. Yeah,
I think she's probably regrouping on comments like that, and I don't think she'll make that same mistake again to comment. So I think if she does, it'll come back to bite her if she continues to push that. But I just personally, Larry, I just don't see someone like Elizabeth Warren getting any close to getting any support nationally, getting any real momentum. It seems like the fringe elements of either party never get any traction.
I agree with that totally.
But yet they put Warren in a leadership position recently in the Democratic Party. How did that happen?
Well, they still got to hold on to the Northeast in the presidential elections, and she's now the big figure from the Northeast.
Okay.
And so,
which is a natural attraction. She does tend to be more liberal in those sections of the country.
That's correct.
Well, let's transition a little bit, Larry. As you know, I was interested in bringing this up to you. We've had some kind of earth shocks. That's not the appropriate. Aftershocks? Let's say aftershocks. How about prior shocks? How about shocks period from the
Let's take the word shocks out of that.
Let's just remove the word shocks. Let me start over. There's been some, I think, strong winds blowing from the White House in regard to challenging the Senate in regard to taking executive action concerning amnesty, and, of course, all the brouhaha over that. What is your observation about that? Just kind of break that down for us, how that is likely to play out.
That is chosen as a political issue, and it's likely to play out in favor of Obama for two reasons. One, he will actually do it, and he's picking a fight that the Republicans can't win. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's picking a fight here. And he really wanted to do this before the elections, and the party talked him out of it. But once again, if they'd let him go ahead and do it, he probably would have mobilized a lot of the Hispanic vote as a result. But what he's doing is the promise to work together between him and and Mitch McConnell, that lasted about 24 hours. And so this is picking a fight that will be difficult for the Republicans to win. Because the way he's phrased it and so forth, he's done it in a way that a majority of the public agrees with his position, and that includes a majority of Republicans. And the Republican Party, the leaders in Congress and the Senate, will have trouble going along with it because the Tea Party opposes it.
Well, let's do this. It is time to take a break here on the show, Larry. Let's get into that a little bit more on the other side. Can you stay with us for another segment?
Sure.
All right, great. You've been listening to the voice of Larry Powell. He is the professor of communication studies at UAB, a well-loved professor there, and one of our loved political analysts here on the show. He keeps us off the rocks, and we appreciate him so much. And you're also listening to, of course, American Heritage Live. We'll be right back after the break. Where do you go to order a property title or schedule a closing on a home? Call Jason Ingram, closing agent and account executive with USA Title of Alabama. USA handles property searches statewide and can close loans at your home or work, the agent's office, or a point in between. You'll love their website where you can monitor your transaction 24 hours a day using their Sure Close technology. And you can also print off documents needed for your closing. At USA, they are dedicated to providing superior service when searching property records, serving as escrow and closing agent, and issuing title insurance for their customers. USA is also a great asset for buyers and sellers and real estate agents that are looking for a flexible partner that can close anywhere. Call Jason Ingram today with USA Title of Alabama at 205-876-1560. 205-876-1560 for your title and closing needs, or just go to their website at usatitleal.com. Birmingham is ranked in the top 10 for hottest housing markets for 2014. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, buying a second family home, or perhaps needing to downsize, be sure and call Sonny Maynor with Hometown Lenders. Sonny continuously operates from the core belief that exceeding expectations is the only way to do business. Sonny delivers this pledge through unsurpassed customer service. Using leading-edge technology, he can provide the most innovative and creative financing solutions available. At Hometown Lenders, Sonny makes sure that each customer receives the highest level of personalized service and communication throughout the entire loan process, guaranteed. If you like, you can even close your loan right in your own living room. Call Sonny Maynor today at 205-440-2444. 205-440-2444, or go to his website at 989-7171.com. With Sonny Maynor and Hometown Lenders, people before profits isn't just a catchphrase. It's the way they do business every day.
Hi, this is Harry Reeder, Senior Pastor of Briarwood Presbyterian Church in Birmingham, and you're listening to American Heritage Live with Jeff DeShazo and Ron Meyer.
And welcome back into American Heritage Live. I'm so glad you joined us for the second segment with Professor of Communication Studies at UAB, Larry Powell. He's also one of our political analysts we have on the show. Larry helps us decipher what's happening in the news and Capitol Hill and on the state level. And with that, Larry, I want to go back to a comment that you made before the break in the first segment. You were saying that you felt that Republicans could not win this fight, that the president was picking a fight. I agree with that. He is picking a fight with the Republicans, but picking a fight they cannot win. Hit that again. Let's break that down a little bit more, why you feel that is, and give your reasons again.
Well, you're talking about a version of the bill that the business community, which is heavily Republican, but a version that they support. And they've been supporting of it for some time. So you've got that branch of the Republicans who like this idea. You got the Tea Party branch who absolutely hates this idea.
Right.
And you put those two together, he has done something where he can sit back and watch them fight. And there's no way that the Republican Party comes out ahead on that.
Larry, but I'm just looking back at this campaign and previous actions before the campaign took place, and it seemed like, maybe I'm wrong, but the establishment in the Republican Party seemed to be making some pretty good inroads, and that there seemed to be, at least going in, some working together between those two, and it seemed like they were trying to dull this thing about a Tea Party and try to make it an image of a united party. Am I right or wrong on that?
Well, you're absolutely right that the establishment wing of the Republican Party stepped up, and they put in a lot of money and they put in a lot of effort, and their involvement is one reason that the party did so well in this past election. And they tried to convince the Tea Party that winning was better than moral victories that in terms of the nominees that they selected. However, the Tea Party still has that strong right-wing ideological bent, and their ideas and their concepts of ideology is totally at odds with the establishment. And this is one that Obama has done to put those two groups fighting each other. Now, whether or not it works, we'll have to wait and see. But either way, there's not a situation in which the party comes out looking good in this.
Let me ask you, Larry, what would need to happen on a national scale to, as it were, impact this story with the president? I understand. I don't disagree of the strategy behind it. I think you're dead on. I think you've read it well. But what would it take, or what could happen that would cause a shift in view where the president might not be successful?
What would have to happen is that John Boehner and Mitch McConnell would have to have a meeting with the president in the White House in which they say basically, we realize what you're doing and you put us in a tough position. If you'll let us out of this, we can give us a victory on X. We can give you a small victory on Y.
Which is the way things used to be.
Which is the way things used to be.
Now,
exactly
is this president going to compromise on anything, Larry, or is he just steadfast in thinking he knows what's best and he's going to move and get it done?
The answer on that is I'm not really sure. He went into office with the idea that he was going to compromise, but he hasn't been able to do that with the Republicans at all. And quite frankly, most of that is the fault of the Republicans. They've been anti-compromise ever since he's been in office. And so the question here for him is that he would like to extend his legacy long term. He would like to be able to say that during the Obama administration, these things were accomplished. And if it takes working with the Republicans to do that, he might do it. I mean, that was the way he came into office. But on the other hand, the Republicans are going to have to work with him on that. He's going to have to give them some wins if he wants to get these things done. Ultimately, if he uses executive authority on these things, he can expand his legacy in that manner, although not as much as he probably would like to.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. He's gone on record publicly a couple of times, 2008, 2009, saying he cannot do, according to the Constitution and the law, exactly what he's proposing to do now. He said it out loud, boldly. I cannot do this. I think he said it on an interview in Univision. I know that's one I've seen. That's a clip they use often. So what about that record of doing the about face and looking flip-floppy on that?
Well, of course, politicians often flip-flop. And he's not going to worry about that if he can get it through. Now, some of these may be challenged in court, but we don't know yet how the challenges will go. We do know that he has still been fairly careful to avoid using the executive authority very frequently. When he does do it, it's on big issues, and so he's trying to finesse it. My guess is if they go to court on every single one of them, he'll lose some of them, but he'll win some of them.
That was my next question. How do you think he will fare in the courts? I think that's where it's going to be settled, some of this. So you think he'll win some, lose some, and that's your take?
Yeah, and it will not bother him at all if the Republicans take it to court, because it's still an issue, even in the courts, that they may win in the courts, but they can't win in popular opinion. So it hurts the Republicans even further in terms of the 2016 elections.
Let's talk about that 2016 again, Larry. Okay, if Hillary gets a nomination, looks like she will right now, who do you see? I mean, this Republican field is so jammed up. Who do you see that has a shot to win against her, one? And then I had this other question, too, dealing with the effect on the states if this immigration override goes, this move by the president goes through.
Well, in terms of the Republican who has a chance of beating her, I've already said on this program at an earlier date that I think Jeb Bush is the person who could do that. But the other Republican candidates are all losers. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have a good Republican candidate out there who will be able to compete with a strong Democratic candidate on the national level. I know the Republicans did very well in this last election, but you've got to remember that was a state-by-state election in just a few places, few states. Right now, the demographics nationwide and the Electoral College favor the Democrats, and it's going to be hard for the Republicans to nominate somebody who will be able to defeat that. I mean, Mitt Romney is right now the leading choice among Republicans, but he's not likely to win for the same reasons that he lost the last time. And the party itself is still shattered. I mean, I've seen this pattern before in the 80s and 90s, but they were reversed. It's when the Democrats had a party that was shattered, and they never could get anybody elected. And the Republicans were united.
Well, as I mentioned back then on a previous show, excuse me, the Democrats kept putting fringe candidates in, pardon me, like Ted Kennedy and Walter Mondale.
Right. And they never had any chance of winning. I mean,
no.
they were on the ballot, but the election was over as soon as they were nominated.
Yeah.
You forgot Mike Dukakis, by the way.
Yeah, Mike Dukakis, right.
Wherever he is.
Poor guy. Yeah. Didn't stand a chance once the tank did him in. Was going to ask, Ron, help me. I had a very poignant question I was going to ask. What about Scott Walker as a candidate? I know we've got about a minute left before we need to let you go, Larry, but what about Scott Walker as a potential national candidate?
But he's a better campaigner than the Democrats thought, and he won his recall election. He won the governor's race this go around, and he has potential. But his problem is some of the early stuff he did after taking over as governor will be things that are not popular at the national level. If he can finesse those, yeah, he's got a shot. But I don't feel comfortable that he's going to win.
Well, I think you're right. I think it'll be interesting to see what Mitt Romney does. I'm not convinced he's staying out. I wonder if he's going to pull a Reagan and try a 2 or 3 attempt shot. And Reagan finally was able to get in, but we'll see. Larry, the time has gone all too quickly. Thank you again so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You sure we don't have another hour or two?
We will down the road, Larry.
Well,
sure.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's
Yes.
the goal. And it will go by quickly always when we have you as a guest because you make the time fly.
Well, my pleasure. I enjoy being on here.
Well, listen, have a great Thanksgiving holiday and the best to you and your family. You've been listening, folks, to Larry Powell, Professor of Communication Studies at UAB and one of our favorite political analysts here on the show, American Heritage Live. Larry, thank you again, sir.
Thanks, Larry.
Bye-bye. And, folks, with that, it's time to take a break and go to our third segment. On the other side, we'll have Matt Fridy, representative for House District 73, our constitutional scholar. We'll be discussing the Constitution and the impact of the present executive action by the White House. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
The name of Jesus, you're high and lifted up, and all the world will praise your name.
Friends, have you been in a car accident recently and need to get some body work done, or do you need a new paint job for that favorite car? Then write this down. Homewood Auto Body Specialists. That's where you need to go. They are locally owned and have been in business for over 23 years. Brad Phillips is the owner and Hubert Underwood is the manager. Most of the staff have been with Brad for over 20 years. Homewood Auto Body Specialists are located at 96 Robert Jemison Road in Homewood. A member of the Better Business Bureau, they service foreign and domestic cars and are ICAR and ASE certified. And yes, they'll provide free estimates. Their equipment is state-of-the-art to handle all of your collision-related work, and the staff trains constantly to stay up to date with all the latest techniques. All services are guaranteed as long as you own your car. They are a direct repair facility and do business with most all insurance companies. They are open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Call them today at 205-941-2410. 205-941-2410. That's Homewood Auto Body Specialists.
Hi, I'm Andrea Lindenberg, and you're listening to American Heritage Live with Jeff DeShazo and Ron Meyer.
I feel like a blind man in your sight. I know that I'm wicked.
And welcome back into American Heritage Live. I'm Jeff DeShazo, your host. Across from me, the one swaying in the wind, sounds of the music. That was quite charming.
It's crazy, I tell
Yes.
you what.
Yeah.
I
want to take a few lessons and smooth
Okay.
those moves out a little bit. Here's Ron Meyer, co-host. In the producer's booth is Daniel Connor. Well, earlier you heard favorite guest of the show, Larry Powell, Professor of Communication Studies, UAB, and political analyst, and also another favorite guest that we're delighted to welcome in at this point is Matt Fridy, representative for House District 73. Matt, congratulations on your win.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a hard-fought victory, given that I did not have an opponent in the general election. So, if any of your listeners are thinking about running for office, I highly recommend you do so without an opponent.
Without an opponent.
Now, Matt, can we remove the empty chair now from the debate?
That's right. That's right. That's right. You know, I had a pretty tough primary. I had a spirited opponent, great guy, Jody Troutwine. And,
okay.
We had a very spirited primary race, but no Democrat decided to run, so no general election.
That's interesting.
It shows you how much demand there is for that seat and what the chances are. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It kind of shows how many Democrats live in District 73.
Now, you were just sworn in a week or two ago, weren't you?
That's right.
I saw that post.
Had a great celebration down at the American Village where the Shelby County legislators were sworn in.
One of my favorite places.
Oh, it's a fantastic place. Tom Walker, I think you guys have had Tom Walker on before, and he's a fantastic guy. I've known Tom for years, and just the job he's done at the American Village has been incredible.
Oh, superb. And listen, on that point, Matt, we need your help in the state level to really get the word out concerning American Village. I personally, just between you and I don't think the word is getting out enough for American Village, and it's travesty. They need more national exposure. The public to support them more. They are supported, but it's almost a best kept secret, which is a shame.
You're right. I mean, Tom's done a great job. His staff's done a great job of doing what they can to get the word out.
Oh, without a doubt.
The opening of the
Veteran Shrine.
Yes, right. The Veteran Shrine and the U.S. Cemetery there. Cemetery,
incredible!
Fantastic.
Incredible.
And that's been very helpful in getting the word out. But you're right. There's more that can be done and should be done. Tens of thousands of students that go through there or have gone through there since it opened. In fact, I was supposed to this past week go on I think my third field trip with my kids to the American Village, and unfortunately the weather didn't allow us to do it. But they really serve a strong educational niche. You know, one of the things in talking with Tom early on when this was just kind of underway, one of the things that really that pushed them to do this in the state of Alabama is that we've got Civil War history, we've got Native American history, but really no Revolutionary War history, nothing about the founding of our nation. And so they really feel an important niche, an important work that they do.
Well, let's do this. Let's get down to why we've got you here on the show, and that is, as you know, in recent headlines, we've had a major challenge by the White House, basically throwing down the gauntlet and putting it out there that he will challenge the Senate, and has already come out to take executive action regarding amnesty. And we thought, who better to address this subject and talk about its impact regarding the Constitution than you? So take it away, sir. I'd like to get your comments on this.
You know, the Constitution could not be clearer. Article 1, Section 8 sets out the powers of Congress, and in the fourth clause it specifically says to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. Congress is given all of the authority when it comes to immigration laws, when it comes to the subject of immigration. Really the only power that, in my view, the President has can be found in Section 3 of Article 2, which discusses the President. At the end of it, it says he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed.
But not to make them, Matt.
Not to make them. Not to make them, and not to use the guise of executive authority to create binding law. And so it's clearly unconstitutional. I heard Professor Turley recently talk about
Jonathan Turley.
That's right, Jonathan Turley, to this move to legalize folks who are here illegally. And I think the Constitution is very, very clear that this is a power, that all powers with regard to immigration are left to the Congress. And to bypass Congress with this and other issues, it's really we see the creation of an imperial presidency, where the president becomes the most important of the three branches, or the executive branch becomes the most important and most powerful of the three. You know, the framers of our Constitution were brilliant people, and one of their brilliant ideas, and you can see it in Federalist Paper number 51, where there's a discussion of the separation of powers. I mean, they realized that ambitious people are the ones who are going to end up being president. They're going to be in the Congress. They're going to be on the Supreme Court. And so the way that they protected liberty from the ambitions of these powerful people, these people that are imbued with so much authority under the Constitution, is to set them against each other through a series of checks and balances, a separation of powers. And the idea wasn't to protect the branches from each other, but was to protect the people from government,
right,
to increase liberty. And we see that chipped away when there's any imbalance between the three branches. And what we have right now is a terrible imbalance that's beginning between the president and Congress. One of the things that's interesting is that Congress was the branch that the framers were most worried about. That was one of the reasons, you can see this in Federalist 51, that's one of the reasons that they decided to split Congress into two houses, so that it would be so busy fighting with itself that would weaken it and would make it would put it at a level of power similar to the power of the presidency and the power of the Supreme Court.
Let me interject this, Matt, very quickly. Larry Powell was just on ahead of you, and he made an observation that President Obama is basically picking a fight with the Senate in an area he feels like he can win. Basically what he's doing, strategy-wise, is pitting the conservative branch of the Tea Party side, the right side of the Republican Party, against the establishment part, those who are obviously pro-business and business people who want the naturalization to happen. And he's confident he can feel like he can win because there's not much they can do to stop him. And so I'd like you to address it from that side.
I think if that's President Obama's strategy, I think it's a bad strategy, because I think what most people agree on, they may disagree over immigration policy, but what most people, most conservatives, whether they're business conservatives or social conservatives, whether they're Tea Party conservatives or libertarian conservatives, is you have to follow the right approach. It's not enough to be in favor of the policy. The question is, have we followed the structures in place under the Constitution? And I think it makes everybody queasy. Everybody, certainly on the conservative side, again, whether they're business conservatives or social conservatives, it makes them queasy to see a president exercising authority that frankly is patently unconstitutional. And so I don't think that division. I don't think that division is there. I don't think it's going to materialize. I think what we're going to see is conservatives of all stripes rallying to the idea that the president is unconstitutionally overstepping his authority in the area of immigration.
But Matt, how do you stop this? I don't see how it's going to be stopped.
Well, you can defund it or cause it not to be funded. That's one power that the Congress has over both of the other branches, is power
of the purse.
To defund, power of the purse. That's right, the power to defund the court, or the power to defund the president's priorities. So that's one way to go about it. One of the things that I think, just from a policy standpoint, would be a bad idea for the Republicans right now is to agree to some kind of long-term budget and remove from themselves the ability to use the budget to attach riders, for example, that would limit the president's ability in spending the funds as to how the funds are spent. That's one way you can exercise the power of the purse.
So you feel like the defunding approach would be the strongest tool that the Senate would have?
That's certainly one tool, and one strong tool. There are other issues where, for example, the Senate has decided to sue the president. And that's potentially an avenue as well. Mm-hmm. And we talked on the last time I was talked about the Senate filing suit against the president, and of course I'd had my concerns about it. I just don't. I don't think that's the way the Constitution has been set up to resolve these kinds of disputes. I think those are political questions, and I think ultimately the voters have to decide. And we'll have a presidential election in 2 years.
There's been some talk, and personally hope it doesn't happen, about shutting the government down again. Mm-hmm. Do you think that could happen and would happen?
I think it could. There's certainly a lot of talk about it.
Well, Mitch McConnell said he's not going to do it.
Well, he has, but he's not the only one to cast a vote.
True.
He's not the only one who gets to decide. And so I think, as we've seen in the past, that a lot of times the more conservative members will bolt from their leadership and say, no, we're not going to give up that tool as a way for us to reach a compromise that we can all live with. We will practice brinksmanship, and we will carry it up to the edge, and we will shut it down if necessary. It was funny when the last shutdown happened, or the threat of the last shutdown happened. There was all this talk about how Republicans were just going to face a beating in the elections because of it. That it was terribly unpopular, and the Republicans were going to bear the brunt of the responsibility. But we can see in this past election that just didn't materialize. And so I don't know that Mitch McConnell isn't really kind of overstated or concerned to a point that's just not appropriate, given the more recent outcomes with budget disputes and funding disputes.
Man, let me ask you this: asked Larry Powell the same question. He felt that the president would have some success in the courts. The Senate using the courts, let the fight play out in the courts, so to speak, and let it have its impact on trying to stop the president's agenda with executive action. What do you feel the impact would be in the courts?
I think the courts would tend to look at these disputes as political disputes over which it has no jurisdiction. That's certainly what I would hope it would do. As a conservative, as somebody who believes in limited government and believes in a limited role for the judiciary, where the judiciary doesn't make law and doesn't get to decide, between the branches who's right and who's wrong on every issue. Unless we're talking about a structural matter within the Constitution, then I tend to be of the view that the courts ought to stay out of it and then let the people decide. And that's truly the conservative approach: is let the people decide. On the specific issue of immigration and amnesty, I have more hope that, or I feel more strongly that the courts could intervene there, as they did, for example, with the recess appointment. There was a recess appointment case that came out recently from the U.S. Supreme Court, ruled that some of President Obama's appointments had been unconstitutional. There you're dealing with a strictly structural matter within the Constitution. What do the words of the Constitution mean, as opposed to competing policy? So I do think it's more likely the courts would get involved with the issue of immigration than, for example, with the lawsuit that was filed by the Senate over the summer, which was more political issues, more policy driven. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to go that route and go to the courts. But at the end of the day, the people speak through who they elect.
Well,
and in 2 years we'll have a presidential election, and the people will be the ultimate arbiter, I think, of whether these immigration policies go forward or if they don't.
One of the problems that I see, Matt, happening, though, is that the courts are overriding the people. People are going to the polls. They're voting against these gay marriage agendas, and the courts are overturning the votes of the people. How do you put an end to that? How do you change that structure? That's the courts.
And that's mostly on the appeals court level, right, Matt?
Well, we've seen district courts and appellate courts have largely, when the issue has come up, have ruled unconstitutional the state bans on gay marriage. We recently, just in the last week or so, saw a decision come out. Last 2 weeks, saw a decision come out of the Sixth Circuit,
right,
which upheld
that's right
bans in 4 states.
That's right,
Ohio, Tennessee, and 2 other states on gay marriage. And the point that was made was a very, very well written opinion. I would encourage you guys and your listeners to read it. It's a very readable opinion. But basically said it's not up to the courts to decide public opinion and public policy, that it should be left to the states and to the people. And it took a very conservative approach, an appropriate approach, to recognizing the limits of judicial authority. One of the things about Roe versus Wade, the U.S. Supreme Court back in the early 70s, when they issued Roe versus Wade, acted as though it was going to resolve the situation, resolve the question about abortion. And as we've seen for the last 40 years, it's done anything but.
Yes.
And that's the problem when courts get out in front. Courts should not lead. Courts should simply interpret the law.
Not to be legislating from the bench.
That's right. Exactly. But we've had a terrific amount of situations where the courts, in fact, had. And you're right about the some of these other issues that have come up lately. But there seems to be like a real battle in the judiciary over some of these key legislations that the states are putting through, specifically on banning gay marriage.
That's right. That's right. And with the Sixth Circuit opinion from a couple of weeks ago, the chances are substantially heightened that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take on a case, whether it's that case or another case, to resolve, because now we have a split in the circuits. We have 2 or 3 circuits that have ruled that such bans are unconstitutional, and we now have a circuit that says that that those bans are constitutional. And so the chances that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take up one of those cases is now, like I said, substantially higher, because it's got to resolve the split in the circuits.
Well, I tell you what, Matt, it always goes too quickly when we have you on the show. We've got to run, but folks, you've been listening to the very well-versed on the Constitution, our constitutional scholar, as we like to call him, Matt Fridy, representative for House District 73. Matt, congratulations again to you. We're praying for your leadership, and I know you'll do well. You do the state proud, and we can't thank you enough again for taking time out to be on the show.
Well, I always appreciate the opportunity to join you guys. I always enjoy it.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Matt.
We'll have you back, Matt. Thanks so much.
Look forward to it.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Well, Ron, it's gone by quick. Take a minute, if you will, and just talk to our listeners. We've got about 3 minutes left. If you would, take about a minute and talk to them, Ron, and share your heart.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. I would love that opportunity, and we'll take it. We've been having some very interesting guests on this show. And, Jeff, you alluded in the beginning to what our perspective is. And basically, for those out there that are struggling with different issues, that are depressed and finding no hope, whether it's government or finances, family issues, there is a hope. His name is Jesus Christ. It's a name that a lot of people don't want to hear today, but he is still the Lord and Savior. He came to save you from your sins. And we invite you all right now that don't know him as your Savior to open your heart. There is a way to get through these issues that you're struggling in. He's come to set you free in areas of addictions. He's come to just uplift you and encourage you in your life. He's there for the asking, as they say. All you have to do is say, God, open my heart to Jesus today. Jesus Christ, come into my heart. Be my Lord and Savior. Once you've done that, find yourself a good church around your area. Join that church and become a part of it and get fed in it.
Thank you, Ron. And as Ron just said, let me encourage you, those who prayed with Ron, find a local church, get in it. That's the best way to grow. Christian life is never intended to be lived alone. Well, another show has gone by rapidly. Another great show with our guest, Larry Powell, Professor of Communication Studies at UAB, and Matt Fridy, representative for House District 73. You're listening to American Heritage Live. We want to thank our guests, our sponsors, rather, Jason Ingram with USA Title of Alabama, Sonny Maynard with Hometown Lenders, Jim King, Brad Phillips and Homewood Auto Body Specialist, and I'm a sponsor too, Jeff DeShaza with Keller Williams Realty in Hoover. Invite you to give me a call at 205-223-7653, 223-7653. We'll get your house on the market, get it sold for you, and help you find a new one. Join us next week, folks, at this same time, and we're looking forward to being back with you. Don't go away.